Hi again. Welcome to I Fought the Law. Richard Every, Steve Lander. Hi, Steve.
Morning, Richard.
So I guess just one thing I want to clarify before we move on is that what we're doing here is we're really talking about law. We're just looking at the game and how everybody can just improve their refereeing at all levels. And we look at examples around the world. And obviously, there's been a lot of talk about what happened on the weekend. When you have a penalty kick, what do you do, right? And how do you set it up? And Steve, I don't know if you just want to talk a little bit about what referees should do at a
Yeah,
penalty kick.
I think the natural tendency after you've awarded the penalty is as things subside, you subside with it because that's the natural thing to do. You're waiting
Yeah,
for the kicker to place the ball and you're waiting, for him to kick. And I think the natural thing is that you go down, and then you're back up again as he's taking the kick. When in actual fact, good officiating is all six match officials in a test match, or three in a grassroots game, or even just the one if you're on your own. That it's the point when your senses have to be heightened, and you have to be more alert
yeah,
or as alert as you were before to let yourself subside because it's a penalty and it seems like downtime is the
right,
opposite you actually need to do
yeah,
because everything's still live here.
yeah.
Everything is.
And it starts at the beginning, right? When you award the mark, make sure you got the mark correct.
Yeah, and use your assistants to make sure that you're in the right place.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, because everything happens, particularly at the highest level, everything happens so fast, and it's easy for it
yeah,
to wash over you. And genuinely, at the time, you don't think you don't see it as an important factor when
right.
it's an absolute key factor. Get the mark right.
And I mean, we've seen this, especially with penalty kicks at goal, that generally across most rugby, that the defense they're never 10 meters back, right?
No, no.
They're just never 10 meters back, so they're always like, you know, goes from like six to 8 meters. Normally they're back, right?
Yeah, and
So
the only thing they can do, because they can't charge, that they can't shout, they can't do anything.
can't put their hands in the air.
Yeah, they can put their hands in the air and be as large and in the sight of the kicker as they can. And if they're not 10 meters back, that's
Yeah,
that's what they do. And if you put your head in hand, put your head in the head of the defenders here, they are really frustrated. There's a real danger they're going to lose a test match with the last kick of the
yeah,
game.
mm,
So, you know, again, the referee has to be in any match has to be
yeah,
heightened, senses heightened in this
yeah.
situation, not
And I
relaxed.
mean, the law book even has a picture, right? You can't be moving, got to have your arms down, you can't have your arms in the air. You can probably stand with your hands on your hips, but I mean, generally you got to remain still. And I think we talked about no one being back 10 meters, and we know from the 10 meter line to the 22 it's 18 meters. We know the dashes on the field are 5 meters. So when you actually put all the lines on there, you can basically see, like, yeah, they're not back. They're definitely not back 10 meters, but nobody's back 10 meters these days, right? So I mean, either everybody's going to make everybody be back 10 meters, or if they're closer, at least make them stand still, and can sort of keep the field clean. But if we actually look at the video, there was a lot going on, right? There's a lot going on. There's the medic coming on from the far side to a player that's down, which I think will be fine because it's out of the game. And then you got the medic from this side coming on, and it seems like nobody's really injured, right? They just everyone's going down.
No, no, and in that situation, it's an absolutely critical element of the game here that all three match officials get the point of the kick right at the
Mm-hmm.
outset before they set off behind the goal or before they do anything else. You get the mark of the penalty right,
Yeah.
and then if you're you've got your sensors going and your antenna up here, you would be aware that they can't charge, which is what, fundamental. And, a medic in a different colored shirt wandering around in front is a distraction.
Yeah. And he's still standing in the field watching the game.
Yeah. He's excited. Yeah, he's part of the game as well. He's excited.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So then when we move on to law, I mean, opposing team had a penalty kick. Obviously, they must retreat 10 meters. We know that nobody's back 10 meters at this point in the game, mostly across the game. And they must not do anything to delay the kick or obstruct the kicker, And then, of course, they've got all those things where you can't be moving, can't have your hands in the air, etc. So, I mean,
don't forget, there's extra pressure on the kicker now with the shot clock. So
yeah,
the kicker's aware that it's only got a certain amount of time. It's aware it's the last minute of the game. Yeah. It's the kick to win the game. And I think any referee in any game owes it to a kicker to give him the best chance that he can to kick the goal within the laws.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what the referee's job in that instance. It's not his job to watch the ball and see whether it goes over the post or not.
Yeah.
That comes after the management of the kick environment.
Yeah. And you can actually give another penalty kick 10 meters forward, right? For the players moving, etc.
Well, when they charge like that, players, emotions in this situation are so high, the crowd, everything. And the referee has to manage that. You can't just disengage from it.
Yeah.
And in any game, not just this game, this is just a highlight of what can happen. In any game, the referee has to manage the penalty kick environment or the goal kick environment, not disengage.
Yeah, and I mean, the same thing for the medics, right? The medics are allowed to come up and come onto the field. However, in those situations, like especially, in a live game, you don't really want them to be running into the middle of a live game, and the other thing is like just being on the field and disrupting and moving around, so try and keep them off the field, especially at those kicks at goal, right? Same with water carriers.
I think it in that kind of situation in any game, it is extremely difficult for either number 4 or number 5 to keep them off the field because they're gone. As soon as they see that situation,
they're roaming on the sides, right?
They're gone. But once they've arrived in situ within 10 meters as one of those guys of the kick, the referee should just stop everything and say, right, let's sort this out. You need to, if you want to treat him, go over there. If you can't be in front of the kicker, the stop clock, the kick, shot clock is off. Now, you people need to move back 10 meters. Your time starts now. Place the ball when you're ready and go through your kick routine when you're ready. And that's what I mean by, in any game, managing the kick environment once you've given the penalty, or managing penalty environment once you've given the penalty. For any referee in any situation, switching off and replaying in your mind what you've just done is usually does not end well.
Yeah. So interesting, we were talking about players not being back 10 meters, and this was another match, and you'll see it in most matches these days, that the defense are never back 10 meters, which is always a lot more than what you'd expect. They're probably like 1 meter, the ball's 1 meter across the 22, and if you look at like where 10 meters would be quite a way back that the players would move. But I just wanted to talk about the referee positioning of kicks, and I think that one of the first basics of refereeing that we learned back in whenever we started refereeing was that, never be in the kicker's peripheral, right? So we would always be on the far side behind the kicker. It'd always be behind the kicker unless they were on the touchline. Then you'd sort of move all the way to the halfway line. I mean, to the middle of the field, right? Just to be out of their view, and so that it plays in front of the kicker.
Yeah. stay out of his eyesight. I mean,
Yeah.
we've discussed before. It amazes me in rugby league that the referee stands behind the kicker, waving his arms frantically.
Yeah.
That has to be, that for me, that's a distraction. And I think in our code, it became vogue some years ago for referees to stand in the middle of the field,
Yeah.
and then it got kicked out for a good reason. You couldn't clearly see whether the ball went over the goal or not, and you couldn't
Mhm.
clearly look both ways to see
Yeah.
whether players were offside or not. And so
Yeah.
the only place to reasonably stand is behind the kicker, out of his way, not
Mhm.
doing anything that would distract him.
And you can see the line of the kick, you
Yeah, of
know,
course you can. I mean,
which is,
it's another eye
mm,
for whether it went
yeah.
over the goal or not. And we all know how hard it is behind the goal. I used to stand behind the goal when I was ARing, thinking, please God, don't let this be close to my post, because it is it is an incredible, difficult thing to do. People think, oh, it's dead easy. It ain't.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
against in the heat.
Especially when you get to the, when you're behind the post for the first time in a big game, and suddenly you go, like, I have to make
Oh,
a decision here, right?
yeah. White ball, white post. Yeah, that's a real good idea.
And and when you look up, sometimes you look up the sky and you got the white post in the sky. I mean, I don't know what you do in the UK, because the sky is normally grey, right? So you can't
Hey,
probably even
that
see
makes
the
it worse.
pole.
Makes it worse. And all you see is this shadow, and you're thinking,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, I don't even know whether that went over or not. And you're relying on the bloke behind you to have got it right, you know?
And the guy behind you says, "Your call, Steve."
Yeah. I remember back in '95 at Kings Park, I was behind the goal with dear old, sadly he's no longer with us, Ian Rogers, and he was stood back, and I was stood up. There was a kick from the touchline, and the ball appeared at the post I was at. All I saw was a shadow. I had no idea whether it went over or not. Ian, I looked round to see the ball hit Ian square in the face. And I just went, oh yeah, it looked like it went over. Put my flag up and it went over. And I only knew for sure it had gone over, that nobody was complaining when we went back to the halfway line. And, you know, it is just so difficult. So
Yeah.
to get back to where we were, standing behind the kicker, the referee has a pretty good sight of whether it went
Yeah.
either side of the post. More difficult whether it went
Yeah.
above or below the bar. But yeah.
And then when you get to conversion, standing behind the ball, you can see all the players on the line, because obviously there's a lot of talk about charge downs now. So you can see the ball, you can see the kicker, you can see all the players. So I mean, I think what this is like, final verdict is just the game's still alive at a penalty kick. And
heighten your senses rather than
yeah,
relax.
yeah. So now we can just kind of look at some stats, and I thought I'd sort of catch you off guard a bit with these, about who conceded the most penalty kicks in the Six Nations after 3 rounds.
England, I would have said England, but maybe I'm
Okay.
wrong.
Okay, so you say England conceded the most and the least?
Yeah.
Who conceded the least amount of penalty kicks?
Ireland.
Steve, do you want coffee?
I'm on a webcast though. Sorry about that. I was being offered coffee.
I already have coffee. So it's exactly the opposite.
Is it? Oh,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ireland's conceded the most penalties and England the least.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. And then they talk about quick ball availability. I don't know what this is like, but when you look at quick ball, Ireland's definitely got the quickest ball around there out of all the teams. Ireland and France, and surprisingly, Wales have got a really low quick ball. And you look at the opposition, right? So quick ball availability stats. I mean, before it was always like, you wanted to get 70 to 80% quick ball under 3 seconds. And now, maybe they have a different way of the way that they're calculating it, but usually it was ball availability under 3 seconds, right? Which is 3 seconds a long time, right? But it's definitely slowed down, and it's slowed down over the years as I think across the board we've allowed the defense to interfere a little bit more at the breakdown and slow it down a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you want a good game, manage the environment properly, quick ball and space. So
Yeah.
far as back foot offside is concerned, you won't go far wrong. That it is a much more dynamic, exciting game, and that has to be, for me, watching a referee. I always think, yeah, he's a good referee because he's got a full awareness of illegally slowing the ball down and just taking half a yard on the back foot, and how that massively affects the flow of a game.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
You don't get a handle on those two areas, then it is, unless one side is massively superior to the other at breaking the gain line, you're not going to have a dynamic, enjoyable game.
So we had the highest penalty kicks in game and lowest. Lowest was England Wales, which is 12 penalty kicks. Now it's just 25. So we're sitting at an average of about 19 penalty kicks a match, which is about normal, right? Yeah. It's about normal. Yeah. It's not actually excessive. And then the biggest margins in penalty kicks per match is Wales Scotland was 416. But the interesting part is the quickest and slowest breakdown, and you won't believe this. So the quickest was England Scotland, and the slowest was England Wales. Can you imagine an entire game that's got 33% quick ball? That's crazy, eh?
I mean, that's when everything gunges up. It ceases to be a running game, and the only real option for a team where there is no space is to kick the ball.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about 33%. Also only had 12 penalty kicks in that game, remember, if you recall from what we just looked at. So low penalty count, slow ball.
Yeah.
When the average is 55%.
It's still a game, Richard, where coaches and players use the laws, referees apply and manage the laws.
Yeah.
And if we encroach on each other's area too much, it gets difficult to work out. And that interface between those two, the coaches and referees, and a mutual understanding is where the good games are.
And then the other interesting thing is that the total penalty kicks at the breakdown was 74, and defense and attack was half and half, which is really interesting because, I mean, if you go back like 10 years or 15 years, it would be about 80-20%, right?
Yeah, it's just, that's not a bad thing in terms of how the game's developing, is it? I mean, that's pretty good, because the worst thing you can do is give the attacking side carte blanche to do whatever they like, and then really hard on the defenders. I mean, that's not refereeing either. So you keep both on their toes.
Yeah, and then holding on penalty kicks. Actually, holding on penalty kicks is 22. There's quite a lot of holding on penalty kicks. So, I mean, the way the game is going right now is that they do allow the defense more option to interfere. So, so when you're saying that it's good that it's 37-37, we're getting slower ball, and the defense the attack's being penalized more. So what do we want? Do we want sort of higher standards at the breakdown so that the defense are kept in check more, and then we get quicker ball, or we're okay with 55% quick ball and more penalties against the attack, which means that the game keeps going this way, right, in the middle of the field.
Yeah, I think you have to talk to coaches, and I think coaches understand which referees allow players more time to compete for the ball and which referees don't. I've always been on the side of get there quick, great, and I'll give you every chance to win the ball, but don't get there quick and then do negative things.
Yeah,
and I think that's an important point in refereeing the breakdown. If you're a defender, get there quick, do something positive, and you've got my attention. Get there quick and do something negative, you haven't got my attention, and you need to get out of the way.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I mean, now that the defense and attack penalties are equal, and we have slower ball, right? So, I mean, there's definitely a trend, and it all comes back down again to, we talk about consistent running lines and consistent approach to the breakdown, you know, and I think that'll be key to be able to set that environment at the breakdown better, that you can make accurate decisions for this in that situation. And maybe if it's consistent positioning, that now, you know, the defense attack penalties might shift a bit, be a bit more against the fence, and we'll get quicker ball. Because you can't imagine, if we penalize the attack more, that the ball's going to be quicker, right? If we penalize the attack more, the ball should be slower, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was ever thus for a referee. Get there quick, get
Yeah.
there in the right place, see as much as you can, and
Mhm.
then decide what's important.
Yeah,
And that it was ever thus at refereeing the breakdown.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's really the sort of final verdict here. Is like, you know, you look at the penalties, average penalties are good, ball's a little bit slower, breakdown penalties is very evenly balanced. And I think those are just the basic things as referees that we can do. Positioning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people talk a lot about positioning, but there's no hard and fast rule. You need to
No.
get to where you can see what you need to see and
Yeah.
manage what you need to manage.
Mhm.
My only rule of thumb is get there quick, get in a position to see what you need to see it, decide what's important, make a decision,
Yeah,
play on.
absolutely.
It's complicated, but it's not rocket science.
Absolutely, yeah. Good stuff, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Talk to you
Great
next
to
time.
talk.